Hey guys, happy Monday and welcome in to another live edition of Betting Weekly Fast Break. I'm Sarah Civian, joined by professional handicapper Wes Reynolds once again. Wes, they did it. The Fever clinched the second to last playoff spot last night with an absolute rout of the Mystics. How are we feeling?
No, good, and I'm happy for the team. I don't expect that they're going to go very far in the postseason, but it's still an achievement. And by the way, it's a winning record, which they did not have last year, so they're guaranteed that. And they've had to band together. I know when they put the photo out on Twitter, playoff bound, we're clinched, and there was like there wasn't even a basketball team in the picture. It was like a troop battalion because that's how many players they have had on this team because of all the hardship players they've had. They've got five now out for the season due to injuries, including Caitlin Clark. So I was proud that they dealt with the adversity because that's a lot to deal with, and happy for the team and adversity not only with all the players being out, with what happened with Dewana Bonner early in the season, and she only lasted 9 games with the fever. Stephanie White losing a close family member, the head coach. So there's a lot of things that went on with this team this year. And
Right.
for
And
them
not
to get in the go ahead, Sarah. I'm
No,
sorry.
I was just gonna say you're so right about kind of the battalion, and also just looking at last night's win, it kind of encapsulated how they've been able to do this with double-digit points for Howard, Boston, Mitchell, Powers, and Petty. Like it was a win by committee win there, and that's if they want to have success or get a few wins in the playoffs, it's going to be a win by committee type vibe.
Yeah, and it was good that they probably, even though they had to do it on the road, they played the Mystics, who are out of the
Mhm.
playoffs. This is a young team, so might have been a little bit of a phone it in spot. But yeah, I'm actually looking at that photo right now. And there were 16. I think they actually had to use more this year, where they had like 18 players on the roster that put on the uniform and played in a game for the Fever this year. So a lot of injuries that they have had, and now they're in the playoffs. They're at least going to be the 7 seed, by the way. They cannot fall to the 8. They can get to the 6 if they could pass the Valkyries somehow. I think the Valks are what, like a half game ahead. Yeah, 23 and
Yeah.
19 against 23 and 20. Fever just have the finale tomorrow, the home finale against the Lynx. I know we'll kind of give a little bit of preview of all the 5 games that we have on tomorrow's card as well. Valks have 2 games left. They have another home game, or they have a road game, I should say, at Seattle tomorrow, and then they play at the Lynx on Thursday night. There is a possibility the Fever could get the 6, but they're at least in the playoffs. It's either going to be the Storm or the LA Sparks, by the way, in the 8th spot, as everybody else has been eliminated.
Yep, the Sparks have to hope that the Storm lose their one remaining game, and the Sparks have to win their last two, and that's against some tricky opponents. So we'll dive in to the Fever clinching and the rest of the race. We'll also go over some of the biggest games in this last week of regular season play and reveal our best bets for the only game on tonight's slate. But first, there's been a change in the MVP odds as A'ja Wilson has been on a legendary tear that just doesn't seem to ever let up. So Wilson recorded her fifth straight 30-plus point performance last night as the Aces extended their win streak to 14 with a victory over the Sky. And now, okay, we'll give us a second to mention the Sky now that we're talking about this game. Have we all said enough about the Angel Reese suspension? I'll give you one moment to have the floor if you want to say anything else.
Yeah, look, it's amazing how this all has worked out because and we talked about it a little bit on one of last week's shows. I don't think what Angel Reese said in terms of the actual content of what she said is wrong. Yeah, we got to get better players in here. This is not acceptable. We're 10 and 32. Of course, you're not going to say things are going great. But should she have said that to the papers? Probably not. And Angel, by the way, has had some issues on previous teams. So she has a little bit of a reputation being difficult at Maryland. And then at LSU, had some conflicts with some teammates down there. So this is not really the first time. Like, I don't think she's wrong at all. That the Sky need to be better coached, and also have better players. But she was suspended for the first half last night. She ended up not playing. The CD coach's decision, because apparently there's a back issue, or I don't know if how true that is or how it's not. She dealt with it a little bit earlier in the season, so it may be accurate that she is dealing with a little bit of an injury, but it seemed very college football. Like, okay, you were out late at a bar, or you broke curfew, so we're going to suspend you for the first quarter or the first half. It's like, this is professional basketball. Like what are we doing? That's something you do in high school or in college, but the Sky are a dead team and they need to be obviously retooled. It's been a poor organization. I felt that they had a bad mix of players. And I didn't think that this team was going anywhere this year, and it certainly isn't. You have Reese and Cardoso for the at least for the interim. We'll see what happens in the
Yeah.
offseason if Angel is still on a rookie deal, is able to force her way out. But you have Reese and Cardoso to build around, and you need better guards. And I don't think this coach is a bad coach. I just think he has a bad mix of players, and he's been done no favors by that front office.
Yeah, that's all very well said, and we'll see if during the off season the drama it comes into her requesting a trade or something like that. I don't think she'd actually do that, but it seemed like that was kind of all right. If she's saying this out loud, maybe that's the end goal. But I guess we'll see how that shakes out. While that was all unfolding, Wilson did slide into first place for MVP at Bet Rivers with minus 335 odds as Nafisa Collier dropped to number two with plus 250 odds. We've talked about this year's MVP race a lot on this show. And up until the last few weeks, our channel was basically on the same page that Collier was going to win for a few reasons, like voter fatigue, and because we didn't know if Wilson could keep it up. Oh, what are your thoughts now?
Yeah, look, is she going to win four times in 6 years? She just might. She won last year, won in 2022, and also in 2020. So I thought that there was going to be that voter fatigue, and I made the case for Nafisa Collier when it wasn't even Aja Wilson, when it
Mhm.
was Alyssa Thomas that was kind of her nearest pursuer and challenger. And why I made the case for Fee is, obviously the lead player on the clear number one team in the league, I think, heading into the postseason in Minnesota, and also the fact that she was really the lead person. It wasn't her alone. I know Brianna Stewart was part of this too, but she was the face that basically started Unrivaled in the offseason, where you had these ladies could play professional basketball. They were in that kind of like bubble type deal down in Miami. I believe that's going to be the location again, or it's going to be somewhere in Florida. But she started that and allowed, these players in the WNBA to play and be compensated for professional basketball, not having to go overseas. And that is part of, what happened obviously with Brittany Griner there in Russia, where she was held for the vape pin over there in Russia. And, some of these players that play in, adversarial nations. I want to be careful here how I describe it, but Russia and China and different places all over the world, and they do that to make money, obviously, and to play basketball. And that's where they made most of their money, because the W salaries have not been high. And that's why you get the pay us what you owe us, like we saw at the All-Star game, because they're getting that new media deal that starts next year. So the salaries for the WNBA, because the TV ratings have gone up, because the gates have gone up and the ticket sales have gone up and the popularity of the league, and Caitlin Clark certainly is the most major part of that, it's gone up. So it's like, yeah, we want to make money. We don't want to, we don't want to necessarily go play in China. We want to make money and make enough to where we could do this. And Nafisa Collier at least kind of set that up with Unrivaled. So that's why I thought that she was going to remain the odds on favorite. But she did miss a few games. Aja Wilson is basically carrying this team. Jackie Young's doing her part, but Aja Wilson is carrying this team. So yeah, to see that, I, gosh, do I want to bet Nafisa Collier now at plus money? Because I think the logic is there for Collier.
Mhm.
And I think she's very well liked in the league. Not that Aja isn't, but I think she's very well liked. Like, she's one of the leaders in terms of the Players Association and one of the main voices that I think people turn to for some candor and for some discussion on, what should happen with the collective bargaining going forward. So, yeah, I was a little bit surprised to see Aja, as much as the numbers are just stupid good for her. I was surprised to see her that big of a favorite, to be honest with you.
I know, I'm with you there. I think this is going to be so close as it should be. I think Collier, the hardest pill to swallow here, she's missed more games than any MVP winner in league history, which is over 20% of her team season. That's just tough. And now the stats are kind of trending towards Wilson. She leads the league in 20-point and 30-point double doubles, double double points and blocks per game. And then again, though, Collier, she's always been about the defense, and she's been kind of that North Star for the Lynx as they've had their identity. And she kind of gave them so much wiggle room to have that comfortable number one seed while she was out. But the facts remain that she was out for so long.
Yeah, yeah, and that might end up being what, kind of does her in terms of winning this award for the first time. Where I thought this was kind of her year because she's really, and it's not just on numbers necessarily. She's the best leader, probably, I think, of any player in the WNBA, and they all respond to her, all the
Mhm.
different players, whether it's Carlton and Smith and Kayla McBride, the stud buds, Williams and Hedeman, and they're a deep team. Like she's the real leader of that team. Not that Aja is not for the Aces, but I think Collier is the best leader. She's kind of like the president. She's everybody that everybody looks to
Mhm.
on that team. But Wilson just carrying with the numbers and the fact that look, the Aces, is it 14 or is it 15 now? What is their current streak? I've lost count because it seems like they never lose anymore. But yeah, the Aces have that streak is certainly impressive, and it is 14 in a row, as a matter of fact, and they're going to try to make it 15 tomorrow against the Sky, which they should be able to do. I know we'll get to that momentarily, but I still I would only bet Collier at the
Mhm.
current price, even though it may be a losing bet. But now you're getting it at plus money because I do believe that the voters want to give it to her. But Aja Wilson kind of leaving them with not a lot of choice right now with these numbers and the fact that she gets high shot volume and the fact that she carries that team and she's the most athletic big player by far in the WNBA. So I understand why she's the favorite, but I would only bet Collier at this point.
Yeah. PD here asks, Asia has Jackie Young, who is Collier's Robin. I will say they went 7-2 without her, so it's not to discredit her, but I think
Right.
it's the way. It's not her fault. The team is really good and it's sound, like defensively, and that's just kind of how they win. But at the same time, it is a good point that she doesn't really need a Robin, and she's always their leader, and she gives them the opportunity to win every
No,
single
I,
night.
I think that's a fair point by you,
Yeah.
Sarah, because that's why the Lynx were the favorite going into the season, and
Mhm.
that's why I like them to win the WNBA championship because of the fact that they have the most continuity of any roster. This was the same team basically that made the WNBA finals last year that lost to the Liberty in the final game. So they have continuity not only with the team but with Cheryl Reeve, who's been there with several years. They've won a championship in that organization before, so that's why I liked Minnesota. And plus the fact that Minnesota is even probably better now with
Mhm.
the fact that you were able to get Dejanay Carrington at the trade deadline, even though she's kind of worried about what some of the announcers are saying about her. Like she is
Um,
so mad that the home team announcers, it was like it's a joke.
let's
It
see.
was a joke because she lost her contact and then she like threw like a bad pass that was nowhere near a player. And then I think the Lynx local commentator made kind of a joke and she got upset about it. It's like, just focus on the defense, just focus on the fact that you're on a championship level team and don't worry about it. So Minnesota to me, still the team to beat, but Wilson, just the numbers that she has put up is very impressive. And then when you win 14 in a row, and stupid people like me were saying, "Hey, maybe they're the wash Vegas Aces and not the Las Vegas Aces," and then all of a sudden they make a little bit of a change, and now they are right there. They would be, by the way, the number 2 seed if the season ended tonight. So they have the same record as the Dream, who are playing tonight. Aces would win the tiebreaker though if they
Yeah.
end up with the same record. So the Aces would be the 2 seed and the Dream would be the 3 if it holds form as the current standings sit.
It's wild the way this has changed. And I know the washed Vegas Aces, it's like you look at them at the beginning of the season, it was trending towards that. And it's not like anything major happened in terms of like obviously they got Wilson back when she was slightly injured, dealing with an injury for a while, but it was just kind of differences Hammond made and kind of the bench getting it together, Wilson dragging them through and then refusing to let up. They just kind of come to Jesus moments. And it was that win against the Lynx, that I mean the loss against the Lynx, sorry, that like embarrassing, it was
Hmm.
the largest loss disparity of the season. And then they turned it around right after that. So there's something to be said about that. But this race, yeah, it's closer than the odds would indicate. So that was interesting how not only did it switch up, but it went Wilson minus 3.35. But yeah, I'm
Right.
with you. I wouldn't bet on it unless it's Collier, but still, I'm not totally confident in that.
I'm not either. So this is one that I'm staying out of at this
Yeah, me
standpoint.
too. Me too. And we'll see if the Sparks stay out of the playoffs. They are still alive after a win over the Wings, but they've created a tough path for themselves, and it's not completely under their own control. They need to win their final two games against the Mercury and the Aces, and the Storm need to lose their final game against the Valkyries for the Sparks to qualify for the playoffs. What are your feelings on this?
Well, the latter, the Storm losing at home is certainly a possibility because that's all
Mm.
they've done this year. They have been absolutely dreadful at home. 9-12 at home. Only the Connecticut Sun, Chicago Sky, and Dallas Wings have a worse home record than the Seattle Storm. By the way, Sparks are also 9-12 at home. So that is certainly possible because the Storm probably should have beaten the Liberty, and then Brianna Stewart just kept getting in the line in the fourth quarter and really put the game away. So that's a possibility. But the Aces, or excuse me, the Sparks, as you mentioned, they have to deal into an inside straight now. Now they got the win over the Wings, who are pretty much DOA, and now they got to win at the Mercury, and then they got to beat the Aces. I think that that's going to be tough to do for the Sparks. They really, I think, needed to try to get one of those games in Atlanta. Which, by the way, Alicia Gray missed both of those games, and they just couldn't do it. And the defense just not good enough for the Sparks, really. When you look at it, they gave up 104 and 86 in the two games in Atlanta. So you're giving up 95 a game in one of those that you have to have, and that's been, I think, the bugaboo for this team all year. So I could see the Storm losing, but I don't see the Sparks winning too at all. Maybe they get one. They have shown on the road. They've actually been a little sneaky decent on the road, despite the fact that they didn't win either of the games in Atlanta. But I think you're going to see the Seattle Storm end up in the number 8 spot.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think the Sparks, their hot streak there for a minute was great to watch. It's a good taste of what could be to come next season, the season after, with Brink returned and fully reaching her potential. And RJ had a great season this season, and there's been a lot of good movement there. You got, I mean, we'll see what happens with all the moves and the CBA to come and new contracts, right? There's a lot of movement that's going to be happening in this offseason when it comes to the WNBA all around, but it's at least convincing and positive headed into next season. But it doesn't seem like this is their time to make the playoffs.
Yeah, they still need to do a little retooling, I think,
Yeah.
on that roster. Probably need some better depth at the guard position. Even though Julie Allemand, I think, has served admirably. By the way, I think she was like 8 of 8 last night from the floor against the Wings and was the Sparks' leading scorer, which that's a rare standpoint. But they need to keep continuing the development of Cameron Brink because
Yeah.
Cameron Brink is the better defender. Just need to really work on her offensive game. Like they're going to have to play her more minutes, but the Sparks, they definitely need, I think, a little bit more depth at guard, especially on the defensive end. So Sparks improved this year under first year head coach Lynn Roberts that they were going to run and spread the ball and score a lot, which they have. Problem is they're giving up just a few too many.
Yep, and we'll see how that plays out with the rest of the week, and it'll be interesting to watch them try to put up a fight. But at the end of the day, yeah, we'll see what they do this week and in the off season. But I'm with you where I feel like this Storm might lose and still make it in.
That's exactly what's probably going to happen. And this Storm team, look, they can be dangerous. You look at them on paper, and if they're the 8, of course they're going to get the Minnesota Lynx. Well, we saw that they beat the Lynx when Skylar Diggins like went bonkers, and really the whole team went bonkers in the third quarter from the 3-point line. That's the only way they're going to beat Minnesota, though. They have to win all that 3-point variance. So I don't want to say it's going to be a sweep, assuming it's a Storm in the 8, but probably going to be quick work made by the Minnesota Lynx.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So we'll keep an eye on that and we'll keep you updated. A new Betting Weekly Dojo was released this morning. It was a fascinating episode as Nigel and Neil discussed how sharp bettors prep weeks in advance. I'd highly recommend this one to anyone looking to add some strategy to their betting. It's always so cool. What I love about this channel is like there's different sports and we're all weighing in on different sports, but there's also the strategy talk, right? We're kind of approaching betting from an analytical view, not just the sports themselves, but how, yeah, it takes weeks in advance if you kind of want to, the sharpest bettors do this. So I don't know if you caught that episode yet, but I definitely would if I were you.
I have not, but betting weekly dojo, fear does not exist in this dojo for those guys. So yeah, you definitely got to prepare, and I think whatever sport it is, especially now that the NFL is underway, and you're kind of trying to map out as best as you can, like
Mhm.
if you're in some kind of survivor pool or anything like that. But that's tough to do, because you always have a plan until your plans change, and there's injuries to quarterbacks or what have you, and you're constantly adjusting your power ratings based on week to week performances. So yeah, you definitely gotta, I think, at least be looking forward, whether it's NFL, college football, looking for schedule spots. That's what I do a lot in my handicapping is for football, especially is looking for those schedule spots. So definitely want to catch that pod when you can.
Yeah, that's a great point, and love to hear that. I love the talking strategy, so thanks for helping us learn. But tonight's slate in the W is we've had like action and drama, and now it's a playoff team in the Dream and an eliminated team in the Sun facing off as our one game before things heat back up for the rest of the week. But Bet River says the Dream is a heavy favorite, of course, with minus 1250 odds with a spread of 14.5 and a points line of 159 last time I checked. Are you eyeing anything here tonight?
I would only lay it with the Dream. I don't think I'm going to at
Mhm,
this standpoint just because it's inflated because the
mhm,
Dream obviously they're trying to get that 2 seed. Right now they'd be the 3 even though they have the same record as the Aces. So look, you're facing a bad team. You're facing a team that's, they're out of home games, so they got these or wait, they got one more because it's home and home Monday and Wednesday here, I should say, with
mhm.
Connecticut and Atlanta. Connecticut out of the playoffs at 11-31. Leela Lakan, who actually has been kind of a nice little story for the Sun as she's produced in getting more minutes. She's not going to be playing tonight. We know Brian Hartley out for the season. Nelson Akota. So this is going to be a shorthanded team. Plus, with Atlanta, you do get Alicia Gray back in the lineup tonight. So you could see why this has moved from, I think it was 12 or 12 and a half in the overnight and as high as 15 and a half in the market. Bet River's still at an even 15. But it would only be the Dream here. But I don't want to lay the inflated price. One thing I did notice if you're a prop player, if that's available to you, Ryan Howard went off against the Sparks last Friday night, and I think I saw some people that bet the under, and it's like, do you like a slow death as a better when you're going to have a losing bet, or a quick death? And that was a quick death. If you bet Ryan Howard in any of her unders, that was a lean. I'm glad I did not bet that. 37 for Ryan Howard on Friday night, 13 of 26, 9 of 17 from the 3-point line as Alicia Gray did not go. So I would only think that you're going to get regression on the points here, just with Alicia getting more of the shots and just a natural regression when you have that kind of outlier. Like Ryan Howard's had big scoring games before, but 37 is a major outlier. So I would not be going over 19 and a half tonight. It would be the under or nothing if you're looking at that just on the basis of the regression here, and plus the fact that Alicia Gray back in the lineup because Ryan Howard's point props have been like 16 and a half, 17 and a half. Now you get this big scoring output and it goes to 19 and a half. And that was partially because Alicia Gray was out last game. But yeah, it would only be Ryan Howard under points. And I would not play the Sun here. It would be the Dream or pass, but I think I'm gonna pass.
Yeah, I started looking at those Howard prop bets and I decided that was a little too inflated for my liking. But you know what I saw there while I was perusing that? Tina Charles over 16.5 points at plus 104. She's had 20 plus points in two of her last three outings and over 16.5 in all three, including 22 points against the Dream. She also played a season high 36 minutes against the Dream last time out. She's been logging a lot of minutes recently. So I'm a little excited about that one.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I have not bet that, but I bet a lot of Tina Charles overs this year and have been getting rewarded for the most part because you know Tina Charles, I guess the ageless wonder for this team. She's gone over. I think whatever her point prop was in I believe 4 of the last 5. Only missed it by the hook against the Lynx, and that's just because it was a blowout. That's the only thing though, Sarah, that does worry me here. Is like, okay, is this going to be a blowout where they're just going to sit her in the fourth quarter? And that's one thing I think that can be concerning. I don't disagree necessarily with your logic here, because she's been, I think, kind of the steady Eddie. But you have to look at the minutes distribution, and she should, if this is going to be a competitive game, get plenty of minutes. But you have a couple of rotation players, Hartley, Nelson Nakota. Now it looks like Lacan is going to be out. So how many players really do you have? Do you have a hardship player that's going to start playing some more minutes, or do they give more minutes to Aaliyah Edwards, who they did acquire in that trade at the deadline with JC Sheldon? She's been getting more minutes in the last few games, but this was a former first round draft pick that hasn't kind of panned out yet. So I feel like they want to get her some minutes and see what they have and say, okay, can she play for us next season as we're going forward? Because Connecticut was basically a brand new team this year, and when you have that record at 11-31, there are going to be changes made. So I don't disagree with you on the Charles. I think it's probably priced right though.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like these last games, especially when it comes to a team with kind of nothing to fight for right now, it's interesting the player management. So I could totally see, like you're saying, it might be varying usage that it's unpredictable, right?
Yeah, this is going to be tough. It's like,
Yeah.
which of these teams that have been kind of the dregs, Connecticut,
Mhm.
Chicago, Dallas, throw Washington in there, which of these teams are going to try? But you
Mhm.
look at Washington yesterday. I know the Fever had everything to play for to kind of clinch that playoff spot, but you expected maybe a little bit effort from the Mystics yesterday. So that's what it always worries you with these underdogs, like Connecticut tonight, Chicago, I believe, close to a 17-point underdog tomorrow against the Aces. The Mystics now 12-point underdogs against the Liberty. And by the way, that upticked a little bit because Sabrina is going to be back in the lineup for the last couple games. Libs look like they're going to be the 5 seed no matter what. So you don't know which of these teams are going to mail it in and which of them are going to try. And that's why it's so hard to kind of find some good bets, I think, the final couple days of the season.
So true. There's a 5 game slate tomorrow. So you mentioned the Liberty. Are you eyeing any of these games?
Uh, I think the Liberty makes sense. They did
Mhm.
get a nice win at Seattle. I don't know if I'm going to lay it here, but the Liberty did get a decent win at Seattle on Friday night. Brianna Stewart, who has really, I know she's had the injury, but she's been struggling all season, I think, with her shot. And she's somebody I think does miss Sabrina Ionescu. I think she really misses her in the lineup, just to have another offensive threat, even though Sab's not necessarily the best defender, but she is an offensive threat, and that usually opens it up for Brianna Stewart. Brianna Stewart, by the way, because I had her over points. I ended up betting her over points on Friday night, and she was, I think, 18 and a half and only at 11 points going in the fourth quarter. So I'm like, oh man, I'm kind of, I'm certainly an underdog here in this one. And Stewart just kept getting the line, 13 of 14, by the way, for the line. And a lot of that
Yeesh.
was in the fourth quarter. So uh, I think the Liberty, I would probably only lay it with this team, because their finale, this is going to be that finale in Brooklyn for the Liberty. So you always want to play well in your home finale in front of your fans, and Big Ellie gonna be dancing, Ellie the elephant, and the Liberty have drawn really good crowds there in Brooklyn. So it would only be Liberty or pass for me.
At one point, it was like Ellie was going to have to join the team with the injuries, but we avoided that. And yes, I agree with you there. I feel the Mystics have completely kind of thrown the season in the trash anyway
Yeah.
now. So that could be a good spot there, covering the spread, the Liberty.
Yeah, it would be Liberty or nothing. I think
Yeah.
Mystics, they really kind of sold off at the deadline, and they've got a couple good young core players with
Mhm.
Sonia Citrone, Kiki or Arafin.
Mhm.
So they've got something there. I think Sydney Johnson's a good coach, but it's just a young team that needs to get better. And I think they were thinking long term. They knew what they were going to be. So I don't want to say they punted on the season, but they kind of did punt on the season, to be honest with you.
It's for the greater good of the team, and I'm sure that they had those conversations with the young players, because the young players are really encouraging and fun to watch, and they shouldn't be disregarded. But yeah, it was hard for them to kind of win at this point when you're kind of trading your vets and seeing, all right, we know we're not going to make noise in the playoffs right now if we were to make it this year. And it's hard to stay encouraged as a player. Well, you know that's happening around you, and you're kind of more excited for next season. So can't really blame them.
Yep. Yeah. So they're going to be moving on, and I believe final game for the Mystics. Liberty still have
Mhm.
tomorrow, and then I believe on Thursday. So New York going to be that 5. We'll see who that 4 is going to end up being. If it's going to be Phoenix, if it's going to be Atlanta, or it's going to be the Aces. Looking like as of right now, it'd probably be Phoenix.
Yeah, we got the Storm and the Valkyries tomorrow too. With the Storm are minus 275 to win because I mean I guess that would seal their fate. But that's interesting. The Valks are plus 205 and point spread right now is 6.5. Total points 155.5. I don't know. Maybe I'll eye that one, but I don't have faith in the Storm, and that's kind of been my theme for the past few weeks.
Valkyries have somehow kept it together with some of
Yeah.
their injuries and the fact that they're an expansion team. I think Natalie is going to probably win Coach of the Year, even though Carl Semesco, who was previously at Florida Gulf Coast, an annual NCAA tournament team for many years, he's done an excellent job with the Dream, but probably had a little bit more to work with. So I think Natalie probably going to go ahead and win that Coach of the Year for Golden State. That's a hell of an accomplishment to get into the playoffs for your first year. One game I did want to point out tomorrow that I think is a very interesting handicap, and that's the Lynx and the Fever. And the Lynx are 6.5, basically on the road, 165, and they're 6 actually at Bet Rivers, I should say. This is interesting for the Lynx because they're already wrapped up the number 1 seed. So how hard do they want to press those starters? Do you see them? That doesn't mean that they're going to bench them necessarily and not play them at all. You got to play them. You only have so many players on the team. But do we see Cheryl Reeve be a little bit more maybe liberal with the substitutions, where maybe they pull some of the starters a little bit early? We kind of saw that against the Aces last week. Now they were down in that game, and Cheryl Reeve kind of waved the white flag with 5 minutes left. Oh, might you do this against the Fever? But yet the Fever, who just made the playoffs, are they going to be happy with the accomplishment, or are they going to go hard here in their finale? I would initially lean Indiana Fever getting the points here because I think that they want to give a good effort, last home effort, at least in the regular season for their fans, because they and the Falcons have had the best fan support in the league, and the Fever really probably have had the best when you look at the road attendance that they get because of Caitlin Clark, even though she's been signing autographs and not been able to play. I don't think the Fever mailed this in tomorrow. Even though they made the playoffs, and it's like, oof, we're relieved. We're finally, we're clinched. We're finally in. I don't know if they mail this in tomorrow. So this would be Fever or nothing tomorrow against the Minnesota Lynx, with the risk that the Lynx, you may not see Fee or Courtney Williams or Caleb Bride, or certainly their more prominent players play those full minutes that they would on just an average night in the W. So it'd be Indiana or nothing for me tomorrow.
Right, and it might have been a different story if the Fever had yet to clinch, and the Lynx might have wanted to spoil their party with the whole Commissioner's Cup beef. I guess it's not beef, but the drama. I don't know, but that's not the case. The Fever already took care of business. They must be relieved at this point, like you said. But also, it's kind of maybe the pressure off their back, where they're like,
Sure.
"All right, our fans have bought in. They've bought tickets all season, despite Clark being in and out, and now Clark being shut down. I feel like they want to end it on a high note for the fans."
Yeah, it could. Yeah, that's a very good point because they could play with, like, okay, we've got this sense of relief that we're finally done with it. Now we can just play loose
Yeah.
and just play ball and not have to worry about all the stress of, oh God, when is Caitlin going to come back? We're evaluating, and the same old song and dance. Where now they finally, okay, she's out. We know she's out for the rest of the season, and we've got to put this together and go out there and do the best that we can. And that's why, when we had the Kelsey Mitchell discussion last Friday, and when she went over points, now she only went over by a half a point, but she had like
Yeah,
13 in
I
the
get it.
first quarter. Over 19. She did get over 20, and they took her out with a few minutes left
Mhm.
to go. She could have ended up with
Yeah.
more. But I felt like Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston, especially Mitchell, were going to have that edge, right? Where it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I've got to put this team in the playoffs because they know that they had never went to the playoffs until Caitlin Clark arrived, as long as Kelsey and Aaliyah Boston have been together. So they had some motivation to prove, hey, this is also our team too. And you saw that, I think, on Friday against Chicago and against Washington. Now, it helped that you had two teams that were DOA and long eliminated from the playoffs, but I still think that you're going to see that edge from the Fever, perhaps tomorrow night. So Fever plus 6.5 would be my look.
Is that your official play today?
I'll go ahead and make it.
All
What the hell?
right.
Because I don't have anything for tonight
Yeah.
as of now, and I know we discussed that with the Sun and the Dream. I think the Dream are right, but it's an inflated number, and I don't want to get it. I don't want to chance that, because you're basically, if you're looking at this, you're playing an inflated team with everything to play for against a team that's not, but it's already accounted for in the market.
Mhm.
It's already accounted for now that it's 15. So I have nothing tonight. So we'll go ahead and give out the Fever plus 6.5 tomorrow.
All right, your official play. We heard it here first. The Fever covering the spread. I am going to go with Tina Charles over 16.5. You warned me about she might be taken out of the game. So if I'm wrong, you had warned me, but I'm just feeling it tonight. I feel they are letting her play a lot of minutes as the season wanes down, and it's kind of her. She's getting playing more minutes than she was in the beginning of the season. I feel they might be giving her an opportunity to kind of, all right, listen, I'm not getting any younger here. Love and ball. I want to show that I can play again next year. You know what I mean? So
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm just going to go with that logic. And I love this show because people can decide for themselves if they want to go for that logic, or they hear the devil's advocate against that, which is extremely valid. But I'm deciding, all right, I think I believe in her.
Well, I'm not betting the under, so I don't necessarily disagree. I have not jumped in on the over yet, because she's been pretty good to me in terms of points props this year. So there could be, okay, like, is she going to come back next year? Because she's not necessarily getting any younger. I try to say that as delicately and not disrespectful at all, but how much longer does she want to play
Mhm.
necessarily? This is, I believe, what is this? Tina Charles's 15th year in the league. She's 36. So does she still want to play? She is, of course, a former member of the Connecticut Huskies and their dynasty in women's college basketball. So we will see, and plus the fact that Connecticut's shorthanded, so she may have to play those minutes because of Hartley being out, because of Lakin apparently that she's out, Nelson Dakota is out. So you only have so many players on this roster, so she's probably gonna have to get minutes.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of the logic I'm going with, and we'll see what happens. Sometimes it's the ones you're confident about that just don't pan out for reasons, but we will see, and will keep you guys posted on all of the happenings of the last week of the WNBA regular season before the playoffs kick off, and then we'll be here with you for that too. So thanks, Wes, for joining me. Thank y'all for joining us, and we're signing off. Have a good day.